Okay.
For the past few weeks, we've been doing year 5776, which is equivalent to 2015. And 2015, and then in January it will be 2016.
Okay.
So which one are we on? Toldos?
So Toldos, yeah, Toldos.
Okay.
So I'll try to send the email. I don't know how I forgot, but anyway, sorry about that. I would have liked you to look it over because it's not such a not just a simple essay. What Rabbi Sacks is dealing with is I guess a very very common question, a very popular question, and that is how did Esau, how was he successful in fooling his father Isaac? How did Yitzchak fall? How did he fall for the tricks that his son was playing on him, pretending to be some really righteous and holy individual? How did Yitzchak fall for it? Or why did Yitzchak love his son Aesop, while Rebecca loved Jacob? And naturally, that makes sense to love Jacob. Jacob was the righteous son, and Esau was the wicked son. And so the Torah makes a big deal out of it that initially Rivka had a lot of pain, pregnancy pain, and she couldn't understand what's happening. Why is she in pain so much? And the commentaries explain that she would go by a house of idol worship, and she felt like the baby was trying to come out. Then she would go by a synagogue. She felt like the baby was trying to come out. And so she was trying to figure out if he was schizophrenic or what.
But he's giving it, not the other one.
Or if he's got two sides to him. Like what is this baby a righteous child, or is this going to be a wicked child? And why is he trying to go to a synagogue, and he also wants to go to a idol worship house? Which side is this child going to be on? And so she went to she couldn't figure this out. She went to the yeshiva of Shem, and she went to Shem and she asked him, what's the explanation? And he explained that you have twins, and they didn't have sonograms in those days. So the Shem told her that she's got twins, and one child is more leaning towards righteousness, and the other one, the two nations are inside you, and each is going to be like competition, and one nation will be stronger than the other, and the older one will serve the younger one. And basically, there's going to be two powers, and whenever one is successful, the other one is going to be having its low time. And the Rashi brings that this refers to Rome and Jerusalem. It refers to the Jewish people and basically the Christians, Mahavdil. And so whenever there's going to be two nations, and it's going to be they're going to be so to speak at war, and that's what's going on inside you. So anyway, after she gives birth, and Jacob is trying to come out first because he wants to be the firstborn, but Aesop ends up being first, and Jacob is holding on to his heel. And the children grow up, and one of them turns into well, the truth is, even before they grow up, the Esau is born, and he already has, he's full of hair, and Admaini, he's red, and symbolic that he's going to be spilling much blood, and the name he's given is Aesop, which also means done already. He's like already accomplished. He's his hair is fully there. He's completed. And when Yaakov comes out, so his hand is holding on to the heel of his brother, and so they called him Yaakov. And then the verse tells us that they got older, and it says Yitzchak loved Esau because he would bring him game. He would bring him what he hunted. So he had food, and Rivka loved Jacob. It's a little surprising. Yitzchak was such a fresser. I mean, chas v'shalom. He loves food so much. Right, Isaac, the holy Isaac, is that what? So he loved his son because he used to bring him food. So Rashi gives us an explanation that he loved him because his son used to trick the son Aesop used to trick his father and tell him things that made him think that he's very religious. So he would ask him questions. Do I have to take a tithing from salt? And the truth is, salt doesn't need to be tithed. But he was like he presented himself as if he's so strict that he was trying to take meiser, take a tithing, and then tithe the salt, and then give that as a donation or as a gift, or remove it, and so
Rebbe,
he would ask.
Even that he was interested. The fact that you go to your father to ask a question, do I have to give Meiser on this, expresses that this is on your mind. So even that was the fakery.
Right, okay. Isaac emphasizes that it also shows that he pretended as if he's like he's fully involved in questions and halachic questions. He's very fully always, it's on his mind constantly. In any event, so he used to trick his father. That's what it means. Not that he used to bring him special food, but that he would, the hunted, the game that he hunted, but that he was sayed befiv. He was tricky. He would trick him with his mouth, and he would trick his father. And so that's the understanding. Now that's a very simple understanding, that his father fell for being tricked, but the mother knew the truth. And the question is, and did they talk? Did they? Don't you think the mother would have explained what she thought, expressed her thoughts to her husband? And so it is a little surprising to learn on a very, on such a simple, that is a simple way of understanding it. And I guess they disagreed, and the father, Yitzchak did not see anything negative, and Rivka did. Rivka saw the negative. So that's the way to read it. But Rabbi Sacks wants to go into that and figure this out. Like, how did Yitzchak fall for these type of things? Why did he really love his son if he knew that he was such a wicked person? Yes, Susan.
I don't. I'm not that. I don't really understand why why it was so important that. How come Rivka didn't know and didn't tell her husband? That's what I'm totally. I thought there was supposed to be very good communication between the spouses. So this is very, This sounds almost like a fairy tale. Doesn't sound like it's real.
Right, but it is in the Chumash. So the question is, we don't know exactly the relationship of we don't know all the discussions they had. We don't know. We might very few of the discussions they had, but the fact that they might have had a discussion about this does make sense. It does sounds like they probably did. Not sounds like, we would assume they probably did. Maybe they didn't see eye to eye in this, deciding what's with their son.
They're not identical twins. Obviously, they're not identical. They're fraternal twins. Obviously.
Okay, and what does that do?
Well, maybe one was uglier than the other, and that's why maybe the father, one Esau was more masculine, maybe Jacob was effeminate. Maybe that's why that was like that.
That's a very surface level, very, making it a little too simple to say such a thing, that they just care about the looks and that's who they like. They like.
I know, but I'm saying the mentality. In other words, the Esau,
Right,
who was the liar, who was a trickster.
right.
That's awful. I mean,
That was
surprising.
Yosef cared about his looks.
what now?
What?
I said that was Yosef who cared about his looks.
It's surprising that the question is, it is surprising that Yitzchak didn't realize. Yes.
Exactly.
It is surprising, and that's what Rabbi Sacks wants to dwell on. So that's the question. 1 second. I don't know who's first. I think Ezra might be first. Ezra?
Yeah, we have to give a little bit of background. There's a medrash that basically says that when Isaac was placed on the altar to be sacrificed, the angels cried tears that fell into his eyes and basically, for all intents and purposes, blinded him. So if that is the case, he wouldn't know, except through hearing or touch, whether his sons, what his sons looked like or sounded like or anything else, because his eyesight was so dimmed, he had to use his other senses. So it is possible that by your voice, you can trick an individual into thinking you're being sincere. Okay, you can't do it by touch.
I didn't understand that.
So Ezra is saying a very interesting point, that there is a midrashic statement, it's brought in Rashi, that the reason Isaac became blind was because tears from the angels fell into his eyes when he was being slaughtered, when he was being brought on the altar. He was almost slaughtered. So at that point, the angels were so saddened. The heavens opened and the angels they saw what was going on. They were crying because, they were saddened that Isaac was going to be slaughtered, and their tears fell in his eyes. So there is such a explanation. According to that, Ezra is saying that it would make sense that Isaac did not really know his sons too well, because he couldn't really judge them. We judge people based on how we see them, how we feel. If you didn't see them clearly, then you're really missing a very large. If he was walking around with a certain type of haircut, certain piercings and other things, and who knows what, tattoos, and you don't see it, so you really it's that's a very nice explanation. The only question is that I'm not sure if there's an argument about this, but the verse, the pasuk does say that when he got old, his eyes became dimmed, which implies that when he was younger, they weren't so dim. So at the age of 37, he was on the altar. He was brought on the altar. The age of 37, he was not old. Now, he didn't have his kids till 60. So at the age of 60, his kids were born. And then at the age of, 73, they had their bar mitzvah. The age of 75, it says that Aesop took off to do his evil activities. But the question really is, even at a younger age, you normally see some type of, negative behavior. So even if you want, now it's unclear what it means when Yitzchak became old, Ki Zokein Yitzchak. Does that mean, there is a concept of zikna, of elderly people. Generally, we translate the word seva, someone who's old, to be 70. But it's a little unclear. Yitzchak lived till 180. So when did he become old? At what point? Did we say from the age of 70? Even if you say at the age of 70 he became old, which I don't know if I would translate it that way. But let's say he became old. Let's just say that to make it a good claim. Don't you think he would have seen certain, certain activities during the first 10 years? I mean, was Aesop so righteous during his first 10 years, and he only showed anything?
Just listen to the music they're listening.
Rabbi, can I give
That's
you an
all.
explanation too?
Just 1 second. Just listen to the music. What do you mean, Isaac?
I'm saying you go by and you listen to the music they're listening
They're listening to.
Who are you dealing with?
So it's there's truth to, you can tell from the music. You could also smell the smell of drugs.
Fine.
Smoked, but the thing is that
Rabbi, I can explain both. Rivka
but
and
so it could be. I mean, I'm not disagreeing, Ezra. I'm just throwing some thoughts about this claim. In other words, we need to delve into what does it mean ki zokein, but vayehi ki zokein Yitzchak vatechena einav merois. We have to delve into what that means. That when he got old, and how does that medrash fit with this? That's the question, really. In other words, what I'm asking really is when the angels' tears, when the tears from heaven fell into the eyes of Yitzchak, did he become blind then at the age of 37, or did that have an effect on his eyes that it ruined them, that they caused them to have macular degeneration, and they ended up getting blind? He ended up getting blind later on. In other words, was it an automatic effect that the tears had, putting the salt, or did it cause something later? Yes.
The other medrash was Aesop's wife's avodah zarah things going on did it to him.
Right.
So,
right.
it was
now,
later.
Say that again. So you think they both agree at the
Definitely
time.
later.
You think it happened later. So it was like macular, somehow the tears caused like a macular degeneration type of thing.
Let Ben answer.
Yes. Okay, Ben. Now we're ready.
well, everybody that jumps in already answered, but I want to say that Isaac was the one that saw the potential in Aesop, and that's why he liked him.
Right.
And that's why he thought that he can get him on the straight and narrow.
Right.
And
Okay.
Rivka might have talked to him about it. She might have told him about it. It's not that she didn't want to talk to him or didn't tell him. It's not right to say that. But I think that she maybe didn't see the potential in him, but Isaac did.
Right.
And that's why he liked him better.
So that's a very nice insight. Thank you, Ben, for that. Isaac saw Esau's potential, and he was trying to he was trying to make him follow his potential by trying to bring him in the path where he'll develop that potential that he has, and therefore he loved him very much and acted that way because he was hoping that he would realize his potential, help him realize his potential. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Rabbi,
Yes, Ezra.
One of the things that we normally say on Shabbat is im bigvuot 70 shana or 80 shana. Hashem, if it allows you to reach the age of being an older individual, if you reach 70 years or 80 years. So we've already been told that Hashem has already made it very clear to everyone else that that they would not 120 years would be the maximum that you would be. Isaac, Abraham, etc. Those are exceptions to the basic rule. So in that particular situation, when you're saying an individual becomes a zaken at the age of 60, it's possible that the fact that the way it's written, that when he became old, his eyes became dim. So maybe at the age of 60, when that's exactly what happened, that that his eyes were becoming dimmer and dimmer as time went on, but at that particular time, he lost his sight to the extent that the only thing that was left of him to do was either to listen or to touch, which is the reason why, when we had the episode with Yaakov, and he says, your voice is the voice of Yaakov, but your hands are those of Aesop. Or
yeah. So you want to say, well, I mentioned that the word seva means 70, and like there's a mitzvah to stand for people when they're 70 years old, mitzvah to honor them. Mipnei seva takum says before a elderly person, you should have respect. But the truth is, the Mishnah, I'm just thinking, the Mishnah does say ben shishim lazikna. It does say that now there's also statements in the Gemara that say ein zakein elamisha kana chachma. That zakein really means wise, so it doesn't necessarily, mean 60 years old. When the Mishnah says zikna, it means 60. So I'm just throwing some thoughts there that, let's say you want to translate it here to mean 60. I don't know in those days if that was considered, if that would have applied. Again, the Mishnah is talking about when the years of man changed, and became a certain normal, like you said, like it says, when people started living a normal life. Here we're finished the Mabul, and people's years are slowly getting less, but I don't know if at this point yet everyone was dying, that 70 was the norm. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know if it really changed yet. It's slowly changing. Joseph lived till 110, and Yishmael lived 137. Sarah lived 127. I'm not sure if their years were officially the same. So I don't know if we would specifically translate, especially because, when is he blessing him? It says he got old and his eye became blind, and he calls his son, and
Rabbi, I have a question.
So just 1 second. So maybe, I mean,
Bless them right before Jacob leaves.
Yaakov was
to
away
go
for
to
22
Haran.
years. He was away
What?
for 22 years. That he
Yeah.
missed that on Kibbutz Av.
right.
So take from 180, 22, so he had to be about 160 at this point.
Well, no, Isaac was still alive when he came back.
Right.
So it's not, you can't subtract it just from 180.
Uh-huh.
Just 1 second. You know what I'm saying? But he left. You have to think about it this way. Yaakov left at the brachas, and he studied for 14 years, and he arrived at the age of 77. So he left at the age of 63. So if they were both 63 years old, that means that Isaac was now 123. So if you want to follow that way of calculating it, so Isaac is 60 years older than his sons. So it would seem that Isaac is 123 years old at the time. Again, you could translate it this way. Zokain means 60, maybe. Maybe you could translate it that way. And he did get blind at that age. And then he called his son. He wants to give him his brachas. He thinks he's getting old. But Rashi says no. Actually, Rashi does tell us that what age? What are we talking about here? His mother died at 127, and he is 100, and he's getting nervous that he's going to die. So he wants to say, right. So what comes out is that he is 123, exactly as we calculated, because he's 5 years within his mother's death. 120. I'm sorry, his mother died 127. He's 122. It's no 123. He says that 123 because he's 5 years within his mother's death of 127. Because you count the year, the first year as well. It's one of those 5 years. 23, 20, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127. So that's 5 years there. So he's 123. So that does make sense. That's when he became blind. But maybe, unless you want to learn differently, that he became blind early. I will tell you that the Zohar does say that it's been chamishim lezikna, even though the Mishnah says ben shishim lezikna. So then, you want to follow the Zohar, then he's even a little younger. He's 50. I'm trying to give you trying to make it work, Ezra. I'm trying to help you out. I'm give you a Zohar. What? Listen, we're not
I'm
on
giving
team.
you an idea.
I'm
If
on
it
your
works,
team.
it works. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's all.
I'm on your team. So we're trying to make it, see if it will work and try to fit it, see if it could work. We'll have to look more into it. But it definitely is a nice thought. Anyway, we're going to go continue to Rabbi Sacks. Yes, Isaac. What?
No, I was just saying, to what end are we sitting here trying to figure it out exactly? I missed the whole point of why we're here all together.
So what we were trying to figure out is how did Yitzchak not realize his father, his son misbehaving? How did he not realize it? And we were calculating, when did he get blind? And if he got blind, Ezra's had a very nice insight that maybe that caused him not to realize or recognize that his son was misbehaving. Okay.
Rabbi,
yes.
Susan's trying to get a question in.
Oh, Susan,
okay. What I'm going to ask you, I'm not so the age of somebody when they had kids or whatever. What I don't understand is, what am I supposed to learn from this whole thing that one is a bad son, one is a good son? What makes this so important?
So at the end of this class, Rabbi Sacks has a very nice insight into that. And in general, you're right. Everything in the Torah does have some lesson for us. So it's good to think about that. But at the end of the class, we'll find at least one lesson from this. And of course, there definitely are more than that here. But
they are both in us.
Try to do. What is that?
They are both in us.
Right, okay. So evil twin, you have an evil twin, Isaac? I'm just kidding.
No, but they are within both of us. Yes. Think of all the things that pop into your head that you never tell anybody else. You know, we all have this, and we all
Yeah,
grapple with it.
That's what very important that Hashem gave us the choices.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. Sorry, Rabbi.
No problem. So Rabbi Sacks talks about the story, and he says the real question is, why did Isaac love Aesop? Could he not see that he was a man of the outdoors, a hunter, not a man of God? Is it conceivable that he loved Aesop merely because he had a taste for wild game? Did his appetite rule his mind and heart? Did Isaac not know how Aesop sold his birthright for a bowl of soup, and how he subsequently despised his birthright? Was this someone with whom to entrust the spiritual patrimony of Avraham? So these are the questions that Rabbi Sacks is asking, and we've been touching upon them. What was Isaac thinking? Isaac surely knew that this son, his elder son, was a man of, I don't know how to pronounce this, mercurial.
Mercurial. That's the word. Yeah, mercurial. Yeah.
Temperament. He was a thief, and who lived in. Is that what it means? He was like.
Well, the mercurial means he goes from hot to cold. You know, he loses his temper, or he's stuff like that.
Mercury used to be in thermometers.
Right.
Mercury. Right. Okay. So, who lived in emotions of the moment. Even if this did not trouble him, the next episode involving Aesop clearly did. And when Aesop was 40 years old, it says he married the Yehudis, the daughter of Be'eri from the Hittite, and he married Basmas, the daughter of Eli the Hittite. And this was a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. So it clearly tells us that Yitzchak was in pain over what his son would do. What his son married, the two women that he married, they were a source of grief to Isaac. Aesop had made himself at home among the Hittites. He married two of their women, and this was not a man to carry forward the Abrahamic covenant, which involved a measure of distance from the Hittites, the Canaanites, and all they represented in terms of religion, culture, and morality. So, you know, it clearly says that he was not he was in pain over this. But at the same time, it says he clearly loved Aesop. So we have these two contradictory statements. So in other words, what Rabbi Sacks is saying is, you know, you could come up with as many explanations that he didn't know, he didn't see things, but he did know that his son intermarried, and that he was clearly pained very much so because of this. And what's interesting is
Rabbi, is this the first time intermarriage is mentioned in the Torah?
Well, you know, it's hard to, well, I guess you could say so, because Avraham is the first, you know, Jew.
Patriarch, right.
And even though he did marry Hagar, which is definitely a question of how he could marry Hagar if Hagar wasn't officially Jewish, but we do know that before the Torah was given, they were not bound. They were not bound by the biblical laws. But here it says Isaac was in pain, was pained over the fact that his son married these two Hittite women, and which the understanding is that they continued to worship idols even after they married. So it's like it's not just an act of converting or not converting. It's the fact that they are actively involved in idol worship, and Isaac was aware of that, and that is clearly intermarriage. In other words, my point is that the concept of intermarriage is a little different at this point than it is after the Torah is given. But the idea that they were actively involved in idol worship would be the meaning of intermarriage at this point. So again, it's a different term. The term. Yes, Yehuda, you wanted to say something. Yehuda?
Yeah, no, I was going to bring up Abraham and
Hagar.
Hagar.
And what were you going to say about it?
That was the first intermarriage.
That would be that you would think that would be the first intermarriage, but
But I have another question.
Yeah.
Why was Rachel? She helped. She helped her second son, and told him to go to her brother. So why didn't she do that for the older son?
Right. So
Not Rachel, Rivka.
Rivka, yeah. So that's a good question at the end of the parsha, but you have to understand that she wants to save his life. She's trying to save her Yaakov's life, so she's telling Yaakov to go there. Right now, if she sends Aesop there, he's not saving Yaakov's life. Now, the other problem is, first he's got to get rid of the bad ones before he marries a good one.
Right, but what wasn't the older son married before?
So the older son is already married, so he
right.
wants. So if anything, Rivka would have wanted him to get divorced more than to get married to some other. He could have had 100 wives.
What I'm saying is, why did she not stop him from marrying the idol worshippers?
Oh, why didn't she stop him? I'm sure they tried. So they brought in many therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists, and who knows what. And I'm sure they took him out to have some, over some l'chaim, try to convince him against it, and nothing worked. I'm sure they used many methods of convincing. Yeah, I'm sure they tried. Okay, Ben.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I don't know if Hagar was really an intermarriage, because she never worked avodah zarah. Her son was what you call it, bris. He was part of the bris at age 13.
Right, that's a good question.
And before the Torah, all the women were not Jewish.
So that's what
this is. The woman had to follow the husband. The woman had to follow the husband's ways, and she was Jewish.
So this is what I'm saying, that two things. Number one is that Yishmael is considered a goy, and Aesop is considered a Yisrael Mumar. Aesop is considered a Jew who goes against Judaism, but Yishmael is not considered Jewish.
Okay, but they were not working. They were not working idols.
So that's the second thing that as I mentioned, that
they followed Abraham's ways.
Right. So I mentioned to Susan that the idea of intermarriage is not exactly applicable now because they didn't have the Torah yet. But the concept was there that when you marry someone who's actively worshiping idols, you could probably use that term there, and call it intermarriage.
Right.
So that's what we're seeing here, is that Aesop would marry women who are currently worshiping idols. Yes, Ezra.
I wanted to answer Yehuda.
Yeah.
I think the reason why Rivka didn't send Aesop to her brother is because the two of them are too much alike. If anything, Aesop would have been, like a pig in slop, having a great time. So therefore, nothing would have been gained. She sent her younger son because she knew that he had the capability of withstanding his uncle. So in that particular situation, we know that because he proved it. So I don't think anything would have been gained by sending Aesop to his uncle's house. In fact, probably would have been even worse.
As a matter of fact,
we know that Leah, for example, cried her eyes out thinking that she was going to marry Aesop. So,
as a matter of fact, Rivka was not Jewish when she married Isaac either. She had idols with her that she took from home.
You brought idols with her?
No.
Yeah,
but
she took the idols
because she didn't want Laban to worship them.
Oh, Rachel.
Oh,
Rachel. Yeah. Another story. Okay,
so
all right.
The women at that time were not Jewish, when you married them.
But the men were also not exactly. It was an interesting situation because they weren't exactly in the full-fledged responsibilities of Jewish people until after the Torah was given. So, but in any event, the point is correct, Susan, what you said about that because they were actively worshiping idols. It was definitely not the part of the Jewish way of life that God wanted from mankind, really. Yes, David.
Yeah, just quickly to correct what Ben's saying, Rachel didn't bring the idols to worship them. She brought the idols to get them away from her father. She wasn't involved in idol worship.
It wasn't.
Yeah, but she lied to her father about it too.
Okay, in any event, we're getting a little off track. So let's go back. So the point is that Isaac knew certain things we see that he clearly was aware of. Isaac was clearly aware that Aesop was going off the right path. He was going off. He wasn't on the right path. He was, marrying women who were, from this nation. And the truth is, maybe there is another point here that I'm not sure. This I have to look into, but the fact that they were from the Chitim, and the Chitim are one of the nations, the 7 nations that we're not allowed to, that we don't we don't accept to live. At that time, it was before the Torah was given, but it is interesting that is Chiti, Amiri, Prizi, Yevusi, Gergashi. These are the nations we're not allowed to marry into at all. These are the 7 nations that we're supposed to totally destroy. But the main point is that they caused Isaac much grief and pain, and they would burn incense to their idols even during in front of Isaac. Now, so Isaac clearly was aware somewhat of his son Aesop. Yet Isaac, Yitzchak, clearly did love him, and not only do we see it here, but we see it also with the story of Jacob and dressing up like Aesop, and he got the blessings. And then Esau comes back, and he says, in the beginning of that story, Isaac asks Aesop, prepare me the kind of tasty food that I like, bring it to me to eat so that I may give you the blessings before I die. So this is not this is not Yitzchak's physical appetite that's speaking. It is he wished that to be filled with the smell and taste that he associates with his elder son, so that he can bless him in a mood of focused love. So that's an interesting point that Rabbi Sacks makes, very innovative, I should say, because that's not necessarily how you learn that verse. Again, what happened? Isaac called his son Aesop. He says, listen, I want to bless you before I pass away. So he's 123 years old. He's nervous that he might die because his mother died at 127. He says, now within 5 years of my mother's, her age when she passed away, and therefore I have to, make my arrangements, and I want to give you the blessings. So why he wants to give him the blessings, and he tells him that give me the food. And why does he want that food? Why he wants his son? Because he wants that aroma that he associates with his elder son, and that he will give him a blessing with that love that he will feel when he has that smell in front of him. That's a very interesting way of understanding the meaning of why Isaac wanted it. On a simple level, you would say that he wanted Esau to deserve the blessings. And when Esau would bring him this, what he hunted, it would give him more of a merit to be able to be deserving of the blessings. But that's a nice side point that Rabbi Sacks emphasizes here. He says it is the end of the story, though, that really conveys the depth of feeling between them. Aesop enters with the food he prepared, and then Isaac realizes that Jacob had already taken the blessings, and so Aesop bursts out with a loud and bitter cry, and it's hard in English to convey the power of these descriptions, but he says the depth of feeling the Torah describes in speaking of Isaac and Aesop at that moment is thus rare and almost overwhelming. Father and son share their sense of betrayal, and Aesop passionately seeking some blessing from his father, and Isaac rousing himself to do so. The bond of love between them is intense. So we're stuck with this question, and the sages gave an explanation that we mentioned earlier, and that is that he pretended to be more religious than he really was. That was one way of understanding it. But Rabbi Sacks wants to give a more simple explanation. Yes, Susan.
Did you just say that Isaac and Jacob shared the betrayal of
Isaac and Esau? Isaac and Esau, the way Rabbi Sacks words it is that they both felt surprised that they were betrayed, that Jacob...
That the father and the son felt betrayed by the other son.
By the other son. Now, I don't know if he means it in the fullest extent of the word betrayed. They were a little shocked. I think it was more, they were surprised. I think Isaac was surprised that his other son was, so clever to get the blessings. But then, because you have to understand, there is a word, Rabbi Sacks doesn't bring it here, but the word in the Torah afterwards is Gam Baruch Yihya. He says, you know what? He deserves those blessings. They should go to him. He should get them. So he didn't feel that betrayed. You know what I mean? In the sense, if he really felt betrayed, he would not have been happy to say, Gam Baruch Yihya, so shall he be blessed. But he does say that. So it was more, there seems to be some surprise. He's surprised that he didn't catch on, that, that Jacob did get the blessings. Rightfully so, he got the blessings. That's what God wanted. And he deserved those blessings. He paid, he bought them, and he was the one who was meant for them. But Aesop initially wanted to give them to Esau, which is surprising. And that's something that we're trying to figure out right now. And that's what we're in the midst of figuring out. So what exactly is Aesop's explanation? So closer to the plain sense of the text and very moving is a different explanation, and that is that Isaac loved Aesop because Aesop was his son, and that is what fathers do. They love their children unconditionally. This does not mean that Isaac could not see the faults in his character, does not imply that he thought Aesop was the right person to continue the covenant, nor does it mean he was not pained when Aesop married the Hittite women. But it does mean that Isaac knew that a father must love his son because he is his son. And that is not incompatible with being critical of what he does. But a father does not disown his child even when he disappoints his expectations. Isaac was teaching us a fundamental lesson in parenthood. And the reason Isaac is doing this is because he saw what happened with Abraham. And Abraham had sent Yishmael away, and this could have had some type of an impact on Abraham, and it pained him, it pained his father, and it pained Yishmael, it injured Yishmael. And there are different midrashic statements about this. They say about Abraham visiting Yishmael after he sent him away, and there are statements that say that Isaac affected the reconciliation, but Isaac did not want to inflict the same fate on Aesop. Now, this is a very interesting and deep point that Rabbi Sacks is making, and this is something that I must tell you is not so simple, because you have to understand that God told Abraham to send Ishmael away. So Rabbi Sacks wants to learn that even though this was what God wanted, it nevertheless had some type of an effect on Ishmael for the negative. And Isaac was aware of that, and he realized that this is a lesson that you should never do this unless God himself tells you to. You never send a child away. This is a interesting point, Rabbi Sacks. I must tell you, you don't necessarily have to agree. It's not clearly written in the Torah this way. This is a insight that Rabbi Sacks sees. And as I always say, this is the only class that you can really argue, because you can't argue on Torah, but Rabbi Sacks's insights are, subject to, different views, different understandings. And this is the way Rabbi Sacks wants to share his thought. And if you're not comfortable with it, it's not so simple, as I say. I mean, Hashem did tell Abraham to send his son away. So did that really cause there to be some type of a injury in Ishmael? And would there have been a better option? And is it clearly so? But Rabbi Sacks wants to say that this is the way it is, that a parent loves their child no matter what, and you never, under almost all circumstances, you don't send the child away. And that's how Isaac knew this, and that's how he knew to be careful with his son. Now, the whole explanation of Rabbi Sacks itself is a little complicated, because, it doesn't say that Isaac loved both of his children. It says he loved Aesop. And so, if you love every child unconditionally, why would it say that he loved Aesop and not he loved both of his children? That's another question you can ask on this. It's a complicated insight, again, from Rabbi Sacks. And maybe Rabbi Sacks would answer that Isaac realized that Aesop was the one who needed more love than Jacob, because Jacob was automatically loved because he acted righteous and there was no question about the love. And the verse only emphasizes the fact that he had to show extra love to Aesop, because Aesop naturally would have felt not loved because he knew he was going off track. And that extra love, the hope was that would help bring it back. So that maybe is how Rabbi Sacks is understanding it. it's definitely a deep insight. And the concept is a very important concept of how much love a parent has to have for their child, even if their child is doing terrible things. I mean, Aesop was doing, and yet Rabbi Sacks is understanding this as a responsibility of a parent, not to show support of what they're doing, but to show love. You know, there's a big difference between showing support and showing love. And the love is what's necessary sometimes to bring back a child to do the right thing. Is, and I heard a good line over Shabbos, actually, that the line goes like this: no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Is that a famous line, or is that something new to anyone? It's famous, I guess. Okay. So, and I think that's
a nice line.
A nice line.
Yeah.
And here, what Rabbi Sacks is basically saying is that this is an extremely important teaching that we're learning from this. And then Rabbi Sacks brings an interesting argument from the Talmud. It says that you are the children of the Lord your God. So Rabbi Yehuda said, this applies when the Jews behave in a way worthy of being the children of God. Rabbi Meir says, no, this is unconditional. Whether they behave like Hashem's children or not, they are still called the children of Hashem. So this is an interesting debate on this specific topic of someone a child that goes off track. Is that still, to what extent, how much love do you show them? And Rabbi Meir seems to be of the opinion, in other words, connecting our relationship with our children and connecting that with Hashem and the Jewish people. And Rabbi Meir, who was the one who believed in unconditional love, and he acted and he followed in this way, because even his teacher, who we know in stories in the Talmud, how his teacher, who was a great scholar, at some point lost his faith when he saw someone die, and he felt bad that this kid died, and he lost his faith. And Rabbi Meir continued to study with him and respect him, maintaining that at the very last moment of his life, he had repented and returned to God. And so to take seriously the idea of Avinu Malkeinu, our king, is first and foremost our parents. In other words, to take this seriously is to invest our relationship with God with the most profound emotions. God wrestles with us as does a parent with a child. We wrestle with him as does a child with his parents. The relationship is sometimes tense, conflictual, even painful, yet when what gives it its depth is the knowledge that it is unbreakable. Whatever happens, a parent is still a parent, a child is still a child. The bond may be damaged, but it is never broken beyond repair. Perhaps this is what Isaac was signaling to all generations by his continuing love for Aesop, never rejected him. So, although he was so unlike him and so different in character, in destiny, yet he never rejected him. And just like the Medrash says that Abraham never rejected Ishmael and found ways of communicating his love, the same thing as Isaac did the same thing. And unconditional love is not uncritical, but it is unbreakable. That is how we should love our children, for that is how Hashem loves us. And that concludes Rabbi Sacks' insight. I think even if you don't agree with every point that he made, but I think he has a very valid point, very important element of how we should love every Yid, not only how we love our children, but how we have to love every single Yid. If we think about this, of how Hashem loves every Yid, and how could we not follow through? These are our brothers and our sisters. I want to wish you all a very good evening, And see you tomorrow. Mitzvah Shem.
Excellent class. Thank you, Rabbi.